Fallout fans have been waiting for over a decade now for a new Fallout game. If you count Fallout 76, we've still been waiting 8 years, 6 years at the time of this mod's initial release. Unfortunately, Bethesda has decided that they'd rather keep making content expansions for the Fallout game nobody likes, instead of making a new blockbuster adventure. Fortunately for fans, a team of mostly, but not exclusively, British modders said, okay, fine, we'll do it ourselves. Chip chip cheerio, probably, or something to that effect. Fallout London isn't technically a new Fallout game, but rather a total conversion mod for Fallout 4. And when I say total conversion, I mean this feels as much like the vanilla Fallout 4 as New Vegas feels like Fallout 3. Yeah, the gameplay is basically the same, but literally everything else is completely different. This is, hands down, the most impressive mod I've ever seen for any game. The sheer scale of Fallout London is astounding, especially when you consider that it was made by a 12-person team, and one of those 12 handled the website and PR, so only 11 actually made the mod. There are branching mission paths and multiple endings, depending on which faction you side with, just like in official Fallout. There are dozens of side quests that you may or may not ever stumble upon, just like in official Fallout. There are hilarious Easter eggs, just like in official Fallout. Most impressively to me, the game is fully voice-acted, just like in official Fallout. And unlike most of the few voice-acted mods I've played, the acting in Fallout London is done by probably 85% genuinely talented voice actors. No late 90s or early 2000s craptastic voice acting here. Honest to God, the quality is so good, just overall for this mod, that if I put it down in front of somebody and said, this is the unannounced Fallout game that just leaked, and hid all of the Team Fallout London logos and name, most people would probably believe that this is a genuine Bethesda product. Bethesda ought to throw a boatload of pounds at them and release this as a standalone game for PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch 2. It's that impressive. I spent nearly 120 hours with Fallout London, and I've never spent that much time with any mod for any game, ever. The game starts off with a scenario that feels right at home with how other Fallout games by Bethesda have started. You wake up with no memory in a mysterious lab, and all you can find are mysterious masked guards, and a voice over a loudspeaker that identifies itself only as Mr. Smythe. From there, you break out of the lab and eventually find yourself in the streets of London. The first people you encounter are a few gangsters with a group called the Vagabonds. This is your first faction of the game. They're embroiled in a bitter turf war with a rival gang, the Isle of Dogs Syndicate. The Vagabonds are typical plucky underdog heroes, well, as much as violent gangsters can be heroes, and the Isle of Dogs Syndicate is basically the literal mafia. You can choose to side with the mob, but I personally found it much more satisfying to stroll into their HQ with a .50 caliber revolver and start bursting heads like they're watermelons, while my vagabond sidekicks trail behind me, wading through an ankle-deep lake of blood. These two factions, however, are not among the factions from whom you'll choose your ending. Their entire quest lines are self-contained and unrelated to the game's finale. There are 5 other factions that also don't have endings, and actually aren't even options to side with formally in any sense. First one is the Tommies. They are the closest thing to a successor to the British Army, and try to keep order in London the best that they can. They follow the orders of the Gentry, although those are separate factions, for reasons you'll find out later in the game. And the Gentry are a bunch of rich D-bags who have barricaded themselves in Westminster to keep away from the commoner rabble and use their wealth to exploit the rest of the London wasteland. There are the Pistols in Camden. They're basically a group of quasi-communist punks who keep to themselves and govern Camden via a democratically elected council with a limited time term and only one term allowed. So, basically what I wish Congress were. You've got the Roundels in Hackney. They're weird. They're like a cross between a gang and a neighborhood watch. They'll engage in open street fights with a group called Miller's Men, but they also kind of just want to be left alone in peace. They also devoutly follow a prince with a severe drug addiction. Lastly, you have the aforementioned Miller's Men in Islington. These are straight-up raiders whose only rule is Miller's word is law. The three factions between whom you'll have to choose for the game's finale are Angel, the Fifth Column, and Camelot. Angel is Mr. Smythe's faction, so you could end up siding with the folks who had you imprisoned at the start of the game and were experimenting on you. The Fifth Column are interesting because they're basically how a lot of people saw Donald Trump in 2016. Not me, I always knew he was a fascist. They look like a beacon of hope and liberty, aiming to restore freedom to London. And then you're shocked and horrified to discover that they're actually a fascist paramilitary militia with a cult-like devotion to their leader. Did Fallout London team base them on MAGA? Probably not, but the parallels are pretty hard to miss. Lastly, you have the faction I chose, Camelot. These guys are like if LARPers staged an armed coup. They live in a huge pre-war building that they call Camelot, their leader calls himself Arthur, their chief tactician calls himself Merlin, and the lieutenants are referred to as knights and each adopt the name of one of the mythical Arthur's knights. And yes, their strategy meetings are held sitting at a round table. Their goal, like the Fifth Column, is to invade Westminster and overthrow the tyrannical rule of the gentry. But unlike the Fifth Column, Camelot wants to replace it with a representative democracy with universal suffrage. Basically, put Jimmy Carter in plate mail and give him a longsword, and you've got Arthur. Oh, and Merlin builds a gigantic trebuchet that flings a car at the Westminster Gate and blows a gigantic hole in their huge stone walls. The rule of cool dictates that Camelot is the best faction. What made Fallout London so much fun for me wasn't just getting to explore London or having a new story in a Fallout universe, but at all of the silly little things. There's a cult of Cute Cthulhu, a stuffed knitted Cthulhu, and you find Cute Cthulhu dolls all over the place, and a knitted Cute Cthulhu helmet you can wear. Then you find out that the cult is actually a legit cult, and there's an entire side quest around it with a lot of Lovecraft references. There are new perks that you can get upon level up, numerous companions that have their own companion quests, and unique perks that you unlock when you get those companions to max affection. There are new monsters with distinctly British feel, like the Ratager, and the game has its own regional takes on mire lurks and ghouls, with mitten lurks, based on mitten crabs instead of blue crabs, and commuters, respectively. I don't think the game ever really makes clear how commuters are distinct from regular ghouls, but regular ghouls are in the game as well. Then you've got the weapons and armor. Most are your typical weapons, some from Fallout 4 and some unique to Fallout London, but there are a lot of cool, unique weapons, some of which are nods to elements of British history, like Joan of Arc's sword or the Crown Jewels. And yes, you can steal the Crown Jewels and walk around London looking like a hobo became the king or queen. So much love and attention and detail was put into the creation of this mod that it really does boggle the mind. They teamed up with GOG too to make it super easy to install. As long as you own Fallout 4 through GOG, they have an installer that you can add to your library and launch like any other GOG game. It's not a problem if you have Fallout 4 through another launcher like Steam or Xbox. It's just a longer and more complicated manual installation, but totally doable. Fallout London is, in the context of fan-made mods, a masterpiece. That said, it's not actually perfect. Like I said, the team behind this mod is only a dozen people, and they don't have the resources that Bethesda has. I ran into a lot of bugs. Most were minor. When I switched weapons, sometimes the gun would, for lack of a better phrase, lock up, and I'd have to switch weapons and then switch back in order to shoot or reload. But there were some bugs that I could only get around with console commands. Quest-critical NPCs didn't always spawn. Sometimes there'd be a key to a door in a quest area that never dropped when I killed the enemy that was supposed to hold it. Sometimes NPCs would spawn inside walls, so you can see their name when you're in front of them, but you can't actually talk to them. The kind of thing that Bethesda's QA team probably would have caught and either fixed before release or patched quickly thereafter. And that's not to say that the dev team hasn't been catching and fixing bugs via updates. They absolutely have. There's just a limit to what fan modders, especially only 12 of them, can realistically do versus a team of paid corporate bug testers. Then, of course, you have the typical Bethesda bugs where you kill a guy and his head drops to the ground like normal, but his body rockets off into space like Team Rocket. That's not something they could really likely fix, as it's present in the vanilla Fallout 4. It's a shame that PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch 2 players can't experience this mod, but if you have Fallout 4 on PC, this is definitely a mod that you need to play, even if it means buying Fallout 4 a second time. My rating for Fallout London on PC is an A.